Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode on the Growth Project podcast, a podcast for you if you're ready to make a real impact in this lifetime. Whether you're looking to start your own business, travel the world, or simply live life with more purpose, the Growth Project podcast will guide you every step of the way. Hosted by motivational speaker, life coach, and self-proclaimed truth dealer, Charisse Fierce, you can be sure that the Growth Project podcast will guide you in a progressive and authentic way towards your highest, most badass, unapologetic self. So sit back, buckle up, and get ready for the ride. Hello, beautiful people, and welcome back to another episode on the Growth Project podcast. My name is Charisse, and I am forever your host. So before we get started today, I just want to say a warm welcome to all my new listeners and to everyone who's been rocking with me from day one. Thank you guys for always tuning in and always just showing love, whether it be on my Instagram, whether it be on all my different platforms. I really appreciate it, and I just want to send you guys some good vibes because you're always sending good vibes my way. So on today's episode, we're going to talk a little bit about our relationships, how we relate to one another, especially when it comes to our trauma, our shadow sides coming out throughout like our relationships, and what to do even when you're the toxic person, or you find that like some of your toxicity is like coming out in your relationship and you don't know what it means or you don't know what to do and all that. I feel like it's human nature to like think about self-preservation and to want to preserve yourself. That's human nature. To want to preserve yourself, to want to survive, to think about yourself, generally and whatnot. But I feel like when it comes to a relationship, that is what is the challenge, and that is what is being asked of us is, can you still be who you are? Can you still, protect yourself? Can you still, have boundaries, be who you are, have your own identity, but yet still merge in a relationship, still be vulnerable in a relationship, still open up yourself to another, still allow yourself to be without walls or without armor with another. So the thing with relationships that I've found is that relationships are a direct mirror to you. It's a direct mirror to you, to how you act, to your behaviors, to your patterns. Like, relationships do help. So I know like some people say like, you need to heal yourself to be in a relationship, or you need to love yourself to be in a relationship. And while that does have some truth in it, I just want to let you guys know that it's not it's not the concrete, like solid, it's not set in stone, it's not only that way. So you can definitely be in a relationship and still heal. You can definitely be in a relationship and work on your self-love and work on your self-trust and work on honoring yourself and your boundaries. I feel like relationships are super great places to do that. Actually, I feel like sometimes it's all easy. It's not easy, but I feel like it's all well and done. It's all swell when you're by yourself to be like, I'm setting my boundaries, I'm living life how I want to, I'm doing what I want to do. But then afterwards you get in a relationship and you realize like you're super codependent. You're always asking your partner what they think. You're always waiting for them to make decisions. So it's like, sometimes you actually do need that mirror. Sometimes you actually do need that other person there to really show you where you've come, like to really show you like, are you really setting those boundaries? Are you really doing what you said you were doing? You can think, like I always say, the world is so divinely like designed. The world is so divinely designed. And it's like we were meant to connect with others and relate with others and to, get into relationships and to create like partnerships and kinships with others. And I think a lot of it is not not only just from our like biological drive of love and of like to procreate, but also to grow and evolve. Because you can be in your world, right? And you think like, I'm not a selfish person, or I'm super giving, but then you get into a relationship and then you realize that like, oh, I'm talking, it's like whenever we're talking, it's always about me, or your partner is like, everything is all about you, right? So it's like sometimes we don't really realize these things when we're alone, but when we're with someone else, it's like it's easier for these things, it's easier for them to reflect back to us and to let us know, obviously with love and compassion, what they notice, what they see, what they observe, how they experience us, etc. So I find like it's very, very interesting and very important actually to connect with other people and have other people and be in relationships and create relationships. And when we get into these relationships and we get into these partnerships, so now we're going to be talking more like on the love side, this is where we're sharing some of our deepest, depths, our truths with this person. And like, if you're in a relationship and you're not sharing your truth, you're not sharing your depths, you're not sharing your vulnerability, that can be a sign to you that, your relationship can go a little bit deeper. Your relationship may be not having the level of intimacy that you need or that you require or that is needed, I would just say, for a healthy relationship to function. Because I feel like, for real, if I can't tell my partner what it is that I want in life, like my dreams, my aspirations, my deepest dreams, and like, also some of my deepest hurts and deepest worries and all of that, I just feel like, then why are you my person? Why are you my partner? Why are you my second half? Or not second half, but you know what I mean. Like, why are you my other person? Like, we're sharing this experience together. And if I feel weird and cringe and all of that telling you those things, it's either one, I don't have, that level of self-trust and self-confidence within myself, or it is that it's within you that I do not have that trust or that self-confidence, or it's that the relationship is not deep or intimate or safe enough. And, a lot of the times when we are having fights and we're having like disagreements with our partners, we really want to look at how we're acting in those moments. I feel like it's so, so important to look at yourself when you're in those moments, to not let the emotion, just take you wherever it wants to go. Like, take a step back, take a breather, and look at yourself and how you're reacting. Because a lot of the times, our partner may be saying something and we interpret it or we hear it in a certain way and we get triggered, or something, they say a specific word and that shit triggers us, and then we just launch into full word venom and like spewing all of the bullets to them. And in those moments, I feel like if we really just take the time to just be present and be conscious in our arguments or in whichever communication that we're having, I feel like it's so, so, so powerful when we do that. And we end up in less like miscommunication, less like triggering, because if you are literally just having the same fights over and over and over and having the same patterns over and over and over again, and neither of you are actually doing the work to overcome whatever it is that you guys are fighting about, or to just like try to understand the other person, then your relationship is not really evolving. Like, it's in a standstill. It's not really moving anywhere, and like it's not getting deeper, it's not getting more intimate, because you're in a battlefield and you can't really trust your opponent. You can't trust your opponent. You can only truly trust a partner. And this is where I feel like the trauma work, the inner work, the shadow work is so, so, so important. Relationships are so healing. They can be very, very healing. They can be extremely healing. I know a lot of people associate them with, negative feelings and just like constant fights and compromise, but relationships can be so sacred and so healing. And a reason why a lot of people experience toxicity in their relationship, or they experience these repeating themes where they're just like replaying and repeating their trauma, is because when someone gets to know you on a deep level, and you know, you're with them, or like you're living together, it becomes a little bit harder for you to hide parts of yourself that you may not usually show to other people. And I feel like on some level, on a certain degree, all of us have parts of ourselves that we don't necessarily like. Some of us have parts of ourselves that we don't love, and some of us have parts of ourselves that we really truly hate. And when you are with someone and, you know, you start to become vulnerable and essentially emotionally naked in front of them, it's for especially for people who have trauma, especially for people who have abandonment issues, trust issues, especially for people who've been neglected, left, who have really, you know, been hurt in the past. This can be very, very hard and very, very triggering. And just this experience in itself can cause you to like be out of character. And I know this happens for a couple of people because they're like, yo, I'm just chill. Like, I'm a chill person. But when I get in a relationship, it's like I'm no longer myself. Or like when I get in a relationship, it's like I become crazy, or I become insecure, and it's because of this deep level of intimacy and of connection that you're creating with someone. And if you do not deal with your trauma, if you do not do the shadow work, if you do not do the inner work, what happens is that essentially your trauma gets really activated, because whatever it is for you, for example, if it's an abandonment wound, then that wound is going to be very present in that relationship. It may not always come out. It may be underneath the surface. It may only hurt you, or you may only be aware of it, for example, when you're fighting. And then when you're fighting, that wound is really activated, and before you know it, you're back to the age where the trauma happened, and you're just like, you know, this person's going to leave, or I'm going to be left, or I need to leave them before they leave me, or I need to run, like this is not safe anymore. And you get really triggered. And this is when we can act, you know, like not ourselves, or we can act toxic, or we can do these toxic behaviors that we're like, why are we doing it? And essentially, these are all like, you know, like I said, issues that come up in our relationships when we have deep emotional wounds that we haven't truly healed yet. So for your relationship to be a place of healing, instead of a place that is constantly triggering you into having those negative patterns, those toxic behaviors, and triggering your trauma, you first have to take your own accountability and your own responsibility. First thing first, your partner is not the problem. Even if they are, we're going to pretend for right now. First thing first, we're going to take accountability. Our partner is not the problem. We're going to fix whatever it is inside of us first. Okay. So first thing first, we're going to turn inside of us. What I like to personally do is I take a deep breath. I go within myself. I do not like engage with the fight, and like, or after the fight, whatever. And I'm just like, first thing first, am I okay? Like, am I okay? And if I'm okay, then that's good. Like, I really sit with myself. I tell myself all the things I need to hear, because don't forget, like, that wound is being activated, and you want to calm yourself down and not, you know, react and just like act from that wound. So I like to calm myself down, and I like to reassure myself. So you can say things to like, no, like, it's okay, it's just a misunderstanding, no matter what happens here, I'm always gonna be here for you. And you're saying these things to yourself, you're calming yourself down, you're regulating your system and your emotions. And afterwards, you really want to look at the situation and you want to ask yourself, am I seeing the situation objectively? Am I seeing the situation objectively? A lot of the times we see things very emotionally, very colored in our emotions, and we don't actually see the truth. So I like to ask myself, like, am I seeing the situation objectively? Is there something that I'm missing? And I kind of like go through the process, like, what were they trying to tell me? Was there something that I was completely ignoring because I was just trying to get my point across? But I try to look at the situation like with another pair of eyes, kind of like third person. I'm looking at our situation and I'm saying, like, what are we even fighting for? Like, what's the misunderstanding? What's going on here? The second thing I like to do is I like to see things from their perspective. So I literally try to put myself in their shoes, and I'm like, okay, if I was a person and like my partner was doing this, and this, how would I feel? How would I feel? What would that experience be like to me? Whether or not you guys have the same reactions or the same whatever, it'll kind of just give you a perspective of what they're going through and what they're potentially trying to communicate with you and how they are potentially feeling. And then I like to ask myself, after I get these two things out of the way, what about this is triggering me and what is it triggering inside me? So it could be that you guys are always fighting about the same thing, and it's really triggering like an insecurity in you because you've actually been criticized about that in the past. And where it might just be a normal request from your partner, like, hey, can you do this? Or like, hey, like, can you do this more? Like, I feel like I'm always doing it. You might get super sensitive to that because that may be a sensitive point that was criticized in the past for you, or that you criticize yourself about. Right? So like I said earlier, we all have parts about ourselves that we don't like. And the worst thing about not liking a part about ourselves is that, one, we're already hard on ourselves about that part of ourselves. And two, when someone else notices that part of ourselves, they may not know that we don't like that part of ourselves, but they may notice something about that part of ourselves and they point it out or they talk about it. It can feel super, super sensitive, and it can feel very like threatening for them to be able to see this part of ourselves because we don't like this part of ourselves. We hate it. And for someone to see us so deeply and so vulnerably, and the fact that we're not perfect and we're not just like great at everything, and like it can just be very, very, like a very, very touchy and sensitive part of us. And this is when we can start taking things super personally, or like I said, just reacting out of that trigger. So we want to notice, like, what about the situation is triggering me, and where does it come from? Like, where does it come from? Would be very, very important. So those is like just about how we relate to each other in a relationship. But basically you can still use this for like a friendship either. Like if you and your best friend had a disagreement or an argument, this is something as well that you can try to do, like try to see them for their perspective. Is this something that is bringing up in you and whatnot? And this is not because you're doing the work on yourself means that you're wrong. Okay, I just really want to get this out there. It doesn't mean that you're in the wrong. It doesn't mean that you're actually the one that caused the problem. It doesn't mean any of these things. It's just that you're doing the work first on yourself, so that when you can approach the situation and you can communicate on it, you'll have a better sense of self. You'll have reflected, and you can meet the person in the middle. When you don't do this work, you're going into there, like I said, it's a battlefield. You're not going to try to understand. You're not trying to fix the problem. It's a battlefield. It's a fight. And when you do this type of work, this type of prep, or this type of reflection, and it can be even after, and you come back to that person, can be anyone, parent, friend, lover, like, hey, I thought about it a little bit, and you know what? I like from my perspective, or I try to see things from your perspective, and it's true that if someone was doing this to me constantly, like I wouldn't like it as well. But can I explain something to you, or can I let you know something, and you can let them know, like, in that moment, if you want to be vulnerable, that the reason why I get like this when this happens is because this is a super sensitive spot for me. This is something that, like, when I grew up, I was very, very insecure about, or I got very criticized on it. And it's just like, I try to avoid it as much as possible because I know I'm not good at it, or I know I'm gonna like mess it up. So like, I just like literally sometimes I'm not even aware of it, but I'm realizing now that I avoid this thing. And I'm so sorry that you have been like you have been affected by that. And I can definitely see why you're frustrated. And just something like that, something like that can really turn you from being in a battlefield to being on level playing field, wanting to discuss something and it can turn it from being a fight to a discussion. And if that person as well does their own work, then they should respond in a way that's very conducive to your relationship as well. And I understand, like, thank you so much for telling me this, like, it makes sense why you're acting like that. I actually didn't know these things. Like, I'm sorry that happened to you. And, yeah, it definitely makes sense why you would avoid this thing right now. And, I was just really frustrated because I felt like I was getting, I was doing more work. I was doing this and we both do this, we both do that. And I've just been really stressed and it's been really overwhelming me. And I'm sorry for my way of talking to you. But I'm glad that you can understand a little bit where I'm coming from. And then it's like, you do this and you go deeper into your conversation, but you see how this is like different from like having a fight. It's like a real discussion. And these are the type of things that bring your relationship forward and that actually cause you to have more intimacy and like deeper like deepness, I don't know, or depth in your relationship, versus your relationship staying at a standstill. So literally, if you feel like your relationship is not going forward, it is truly connected to the level to which you can communicate and relate to each other. And the moment you feel like this person is not understanding you, that you guys are not seeing eye to eye, and doesn't mean you have to agree on everything, but if they can't even get where you're coming from and you can't get where they're coming from, then you're just in cognitive dissonance, and you're just like, you both are kind of like going to be living in two separate realities. And I feel like whenever it comes to relationships, being on the same page is so important. And the goal should be harmony and being on the same page and, feeling safe and feeling like peaceful with each other, instead of like having things in the back of our head that we're like resenting the other person for. And a mindset that has really helped me in my relationship, like I said, to foster more open, honest, and like deep level conversations is really, I'm not here to fight you. I'm not here to hurt you. I am not like, this is, I repeat this so much. It's like, listen, I'm not here to fight you and I'm not here to hurt you. I want to be heard and I want to hear you. I want to be heard and understood, and I'm here to understand you. I'm here to find a solution to whatever our problem is, because the problem is not you, the problem is not me, the problem is this situation. The problem is how we're both, experiencing this situation, and the problem is how we're reacting to the situation. But the problem is not either of us. The problem is the problem. And this type of mindset has helped me so much create like more peace in my relationships. And like I said, it even works with friendships. All of that is like, if someone makes a kind of weird comment, like I can choose to like bring it up to them, and I can choose to do that in a way that is honest, authentic, and vulnerable. And I feel like a lot of us try to not be vulnerable in our relationships, but vulnerability is such a strength, and it's that creates that bond. When you can literally be true and without without armor in front of someone and be like, listen, I'm really not trying to hurt you. I just really feel, frustrated about this, or I'm hurt by this. And that person can perceive that level of vulnerability that you're giving them, and they can match that. Like, the level of deepness and intimacy, like I said, in your relationship is going to expand so much. And this is when your relationship actually starts becoming very, very healing and less on the trigger toxic side. Doesn't mean you're not gonna fight. It doesn't mean that, but it just means that your relationship becomes a safe space. It becomes a safe space. And when you're constantly acting out of hurt, when you're constantly relating to the other person as the bad guy, or one's the bad guy, one's the good guy, one's it's your fault, it's not my fault, it's you're in the wrong. When you're constantly doing that, you're creating a battlefield type of relationship. You're creating a battlefield type of energy around your relationship, and that doesn't feel safe. Like, no one feels safe on the battlefield. Everyone has their guard up. Everyone is ready to protect themselves. And that's where our self-preservation especially kicks in. And we don't want to hurt. We don't want to be the one in wrong. We don't want to be the one that's left. We don't want to be the one that, whatever it is that's activating back into us, our trauma. We don't want to be the one that's not good enough. We don't want to be, and literally sometimes being wrong in our relationship can literally feel like that. Like, when we do something, it can feel like, oh, it's always my fault, or like, I'm not good enough. And sometimes we're feeling those feelings so much that we prefer to fight with the other person instead of just acknowledging these things within ourselves. So like I said, my biggest step is to take accountability for your actions, for what you did, for how you contributed to that situation. That's all you can do. And to approach your partner, to approach your friend with a level of trust and vulnerability and just realness, to be like, hey, I just really want to be real with you right now. No, you don't need to have any aggressivity. No need to have this, like, you're here to have a real conversation, because your goal is not to be right. Your goal is not to prove them wrong or make them feel shitty. Your goal is to be heard, be understood, hear them, and understand them. And through that, come to some sort of conclusion, solution, or harmonize something together. And that is what love is about. Love is definitely about being ourselves, but being ourselves with someone else, and to having those boundaries, but also merging and allowing ourselves to merge, and allowing ourselves to feel good, and allowing ourselves to feel safe in our relationships, and feel in love, and feel all those good feelings. Because what's the point of being in a relationship if you always have to be on your guard, if you can never trust the person that you are with, if you can't tell them deep dark things or secret things, or your wishes and your dreams, or you can't even trust them to like not use the information that you give them against you. You know what I mean? This is not what a relationship is for. It's absolutely not what a relationship is for. And it's not what love is. And it's not the purpose of love either. You know what I mean? And what I wish for many of us is to continue to work on ourselves, and to continue to work on creating, healthy, peaceful, growing, glowing, like evolving relationships, and to move away from the image of relationships that we see today, especially in the media, and the narrative of everyone being toxic and everyone being out there to get each other. Like, it's not true. It just takes a level of honesty first with yourself, then with your partner, a level of vulnerability first with yourself, then with your partner, and a level of like understanding first with yourself and then with your partner. So thank you guys so much for listening. That is going to be the end of my episode today. for those who, like I said, are really interested in working on themselves a little bit more, into creating that inner connection with themselves and creating more self-trust so that can radiate out into their relationship. I am going to leave the link in the description of this episode for my self-trust and inner connection ebook, little workbook, so about 5 pages, and you guys can work through that. It's definitely, I have put like all my best practices and some of the questions that I love the most in there, and it's an ebook that has helped others as well connect deeper with themselves and to connect more with their inner guidance and their inner voice. And I feel like these are all things that are so important in a relationship, because your first relationship is with yourself. And once your relationship with yourself is deepening, it's evolving, it's growing, you're going to notice that is going to echo out in all your other relationships in your life. So if you're interested in my Trust Yourself Self-Trust freebie ebook, I'm going to leave the link in, like I said, in the description. It's free and you can download it and read it and work through it, and feel free to send me feedback and let me know how it has helped you. And if anyone listening has any more questions about fostering more communication in their relationships or fostering a better relationship with themselves, you can also hit me up at Sharice Fierce on Instagram or ShariceFierce.com, and we can go deeper into that. We can have a deep dive, which I absolutely love. It's one of my favorite services that I offer, where we go deeper into anything that you want to go into. And it's also good for like if you want to know more about yourself, creating a deeper relationship with yourself, fostering more self-love, self-trust, and intimacy with yourself and others. It's definitely good for that as well. So as always, thank you guys so much for listening, and I can't wait to talk to you soon. Bye.